Shalom, dear friends. Yehudah Glick, Shalom Jerusalem Foundation, Jerusalem. It's happening. We're starting the Torah. We're going to read the Torah together, and we're going to love it. We really are going to love it. We're going to, I read the words of the Torah, and I read them with so much passion and love, because they teach not only the commandments, and not only the prophecies, and not only the stories, and not only the philosophy and the thought. It's a Torat Chaim, a lively Torah. It's a Torah that is living every single day, thousands of years, in billions of people's houses, in so many hearts, in so many families, in so many classrooms, in so many community centers. It's just the living of God in the world. So let's begin. Let's begin from Bereshit. Bereshit, in the beginning. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. If you'd learn that word, that sentence in Hebrew, you're a wonderful. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. 7 words. Bereshit, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. But the truth is that we have a problem when we read that one, because the heaven, according to the story, was created on the second day. As it says, on the second day, in verse 8, and God called the rakia, the curtain that he put there, he called it shamayim, heaven. So that was on the second day. And the earth was created on the third day. As it says, Vayikra, in verse 10, Vayikra Elohim layabasha, and God called the dry land Eretz, earth. First of all, it's very interesting. The word Eretz and the word earth come from the same origin. Eretz, which means earth. So here, easy to remember the Hebrew word Eretz, or Aretz, when it comes at the end of a sentence, as it goes in Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. So the first sentence is actually I would say a headline, a title for the whole chapter. The chapter is how God created the heaven and the earth. No two gods, a God of heaven and a God of earth. God created the heaven and the earth. The spiritual, the mystical, the heavenly things, and the materialistic. All one God. God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth, as it begins in the second verse, was dry land, was deserted, was tohu vavohu. We don't know exactly what tohu vavohu means, but it means some kind of lack of order. And here we see, in chapter 1 of the book of Exodus, God puts it in order. And I want to point out, I was wondering, reading through the verses, what is the word that appears the most time in chapter 1 of Exodus? I thought maybe it was, and God said, but that appears only 11 times. I thought it was maybe, and God saw everything was good, but that appears only 7 times. And I was thinking, what is the word that appears more than anything in chapter 1? And I counted 34 times in 34 verses. If I include the another 3 for chapter 2 of the Shabbat, which is the end of the whole story. It says, and God concluded the heaven and the earth. 34 times. You know what that word is? Elohim, God. God is in every single verse of this world. God is in every chapter, in every move, in every breath in this world. From the animals through the plants, from the plants to the sun and the moon and the light and the darkness and time and space, and in all the dimensions of depth and of length, God's there, wherever it is. Every single verse, 34 times in 34 verses. Isn't that fabulous? It is the concept of everything. And what did God do? He first said, let there be light. And there was light. The only time that says, and there was, when God said. All the other times it says, and it was as so. But vayichen. But here it says, God said there should be light, and there's light. We can create light by just saying, announcing, declaring that that's what we want to see in this world. We want to see light. And God saw everything he made. Every single thing was created. It was good. It was good. And the whole creation together was very good. And there's God's name. And that's what God's doing. But not only that's God's name in every single sentence, God was calling names. And we'll see the calling of names in the Bible is very, very common, because when you call something a name, you give it an identity. You say, this has a meaning. This has a concept. So what is the story of the creation? What is chapter 1 of the book of Exodus trying to tell us? It's trying to tell us that God's everywhere, that God created the world, that there are no partners. He created the heaven and the earth. He even created the big, big, monstrous creatures. That's what God did. God was the creator of the entire world, and he's here till now. And he also made sure every one of the creatures has its needs. As it says, God blessed them. Be fruitful. So it's a continuous thing. But he said, God blessed them, and he gave them what to eat. As it says in verse 29, and God said, here I gave you all of the growing vegetables from the air, and all the trees, and everything that have fruits on it. They're all for you to be eaten. And for the animals, and for the creatures, and for the birds. Also, all the growing crop God created. So God not only created the world, he created the ability to be fruitful for continuity, and he also created the food so that these creatures, those that were created by God, will be able to continue and live in this world with God. 34 times in 34 verses. God's in every single verse of our life. He's there. Now, what else do we see? There's order. There are 7 days. There are 10 calls, sayings by God to create things. And there are 3 times where God uses the special word, bara, create. In verse 1, Bereshit bara, that's when he created the entire environment of the land. Then the second time, it appears when God begins creating the world of animals. In verse 21, it says, and God created the crocodiles, or the big monstrous creatures, and all of the living creatures with souls. God created the world, the land of the earth, and I would say, and all the covering of the earth, the world of life. And the third dimension was God created, and God created, in verse 27, God created the man in his image. So 3 times. So there are 7 days, there are 10 sayings of God for creation, and there are 3 times where God actually created a new dimension in the world. He creates the atmosphere, I would say the covering of the world, the land. He creates the creatures, animals, fish, birds, and he created man. These are 3 dimensions of the world. Man, which was created on the same day as the animals. So in a way, man should have to remember that he himself is a sophisticated creature. He's also part of the living beasts, but he's also a new dimension on his own. And here we see that the Torah, in chapter 1, is trying to give us a very strong atmosphere of the world. There's order in the world. Man has a mission. He was created in the image of God, and he has a mission to rule over, to keep sure that this world, and to improve it. As the last word in the whole creation story is at the end of the Shabbat, where we are supposed to remember that God sanctified the Shabbat, and God gave us the Shabbat, and he created the world in 6 days, so we should have the Shabbat, and so we should remember that he is the creator of the world. And he does this, and he fills the world with blessing, and he's taking care of the world, and he makes sure the world can be fruitful and can deal with future generations, and he leaves food for all of us. But he also tells us, you do, you create, you build, you improve, you upgrade this world. This world that I created, God says, is not to be dynamic. It's not to be static, it's to be dynamic. It's a dynamic world, and I'm giving you, mankind, the ability to do it. Mankind was the only creature that God created which he didn't say it was good. He looks at the light, he says it's good. He looks at the earth, he says it's good. He looks at the heaven, it's good. He looks at the plant, it's good. Man didn't say it's good. He looked at the whole creation, it's very good. Man can decide whether he will make things good, and then the good of man can reach highest of highs, or he can make the world to bad, and it can reach very low, very, very, very deep situations. It's in the hands of man. he was created in the image of God. And also God teaches us modesty. When God decides to create mankind, in verse 26, and God said, let us make a man in our image. God doesn't need to ask permission from anybody. Doesn't need to take advice. And I don't even know if it says let's make man, or does it say shall we make man? I don't know. It's hard to know. There are no question marks here. We don't know exactly what God was asking, but God comes and shows that even he, when he comes to create mankind, and he's giving over part of his power to mankind, he says, he talks and says, let's do it. I don't know who he's talking to. Whether he's talking to the angels, maybe he's talking to mankind himself. God, man was created in his image. He says, na'aseh, in the plural. Let's make mankind. So this wonderful chapter, we're beginning from nothing. Beginning from a total world of water and darkness. And God says there should be light. Creates the world in various dimensions, in order. And he's there to say, I'm here in every verse. And he says, I'm giving it over to you. And he teaches us that the world, it was created in 6 days, so the seventh day we will remember that God created the world, blessed it, and sanctified it. But also, God told us, man, you're a totally different dimension. You have an ability to be the image of God in the world. So God, guys, it's in our hands. This is chapter 1 of Genesis. Please share it with your friends. Please give me a little bit feedbacks of what you think of what I said. Give me your ideas. Let me hear what you have to say. And let's join 929, chapter 1 of Genesis, chapter 2 coming up soon. I love you all. God bless you all. And Shalom from Jerusalem.